afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Water quality is a hotly contested topic in Vermont. Most of the attention is focused on the Lake Champlain watershed, but the lake is only part of Vermont's water quality story. Vermont's entire eastern border is formed by the Connecticut River, and that watershed incorporates 40% of Vermont's population. The debate shouldn't be about east and west, but rather what's best for Vermont. A recent workshop was held for agricultural service professionals to learn more about the benefits and challenges of farming alongside New England's longest waterway. Here's Keith Silva with our story.
The Connecticut River runs 410 miles, which makes it New England's longest river. It courses through 4 states before emptying into Long Island Sound. The river's watershed is home to over 2 million people and some of the region's most productive farmland.
As you go up and down the valley, there's a lot of farming that's going on.
Majewski is a dairy, livestock, and forage crop specialist with the University of New Hampshire Extension. He's here at Cedar Mountain Farm in Heartland with researchers and agricultural service providers in New England to take part in an in-service training.
In order for farms to prosper, they've got to have good land to work with. The fields around here, they're more level, they're well drained, they're fertile. It's in a pretty good climate. You don't have to go too far. I mean, you can look out that way and you can see off into New Hampshire that it's not that far before it starts getting pretty steep and pretty rocky and a lot less conducive to farming. So, you know, there's good land over here, and so we want to take care of it.
Top of mind with everyone at this event are best management practices for protecting soil and improving water quality here in Vermont and hundreds of miles downriver.
If farms aren't careful, you can get nutrients leaving the field, getting into surface waters that makes its way into the river, that makes its way downstream. So if we can avoid that, then that's what we're working towards. You know, and it's in the farmer's own interest as well. I mean, farms, they pay good money for that nitrogen and all those other nutrients that they bring onto the farm. You don't want to just have them dribble away.
Animals we have at the moment, we have 58 cows, heifers, and steers. That's our combined number of animals.
Kerry Gawalt is the herdswoman and co-owner of Cedar Mountain Farm. In addition to dairy, they also raise vegetables and make cheese. She knows all too well about water quality and nutrient management concerns that affect farmers and the general public.
Just looking at the structure of our land, we have an incredibly gravelly soil. We have not a ton of cows on a fairly small area, and many homes all the way around us. We really get worried about impacting people's drinking water. Even before it has a chance to get to the brook and go further, we just look at, we're surrounded, on everything that's not a hill, we are completely surrounded by homes.
Gawalt's neighbors are used to having cows graze within a few hundred feet of their homes. But this isn't the case for most people.
So I think there's been a big disconnect between farmers and a lot of the general public. So I think for people to realize that farmers are educated, they think about what they're doing. Nobody wants to have a dirty farm, and I think being able to just really communicate that farmers work really hard. Having, your farm fall into the river doesn't benefit anybody. That I think, farmers are working hard every day, but I'm not sure that message is always getting out there.
Gawalt and her fellow farmers on the Connecticut River have another challenge when it comes to perception and getting attention. Lake Champlain. Algae blooms from nutrient runoff have put a spotlight on the water quality of the lake, and for good reason. When farmers in the Connecticut River watershed compete with farmers in the Champlain Valley for state and national funding for on-farm projects to improve water quality, hard decisions have to be made.
It's important to remember there is water on this side of the state too. The water drains both ways. And one of the things you hear when you go to meetings is farmers over here say, wait a minute, nobody's paying attention on this side of the state to help with cost share for a lot of farms, especially who are directly on the river. They're looking for, being able to plant a buffer, being able to put in, a fence, that there's often are not a lot of resources because a lot of the perception is that the money is allocated to the other side of the state.
Gawalt worked with the National Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. She received funding for fencing, which reduced erosion, and constructed a bedded pack barn that composts manure when the cows are inside. Gawalt believes in being proactive.
Yeah, and for us, because we'd already been 10 years with working with NRCS, so when it came to the other water quality issues, we were prepared, which was good. You know, we weren't caught off guard. We'd already set up a nutrient management plan. We'd already made the manure stacking pad. We'd already done all these projects with, you know, more than half of it covered by, you know, NRCS, and so they really helped us with stuff we couldn't have afforded to do. But if we hadn't started on all this 10 years ago, you know, we did like $300,000 worth of improvements. So if you hadn't been paying attention or just not thinking about it at all, it would have been really in a tough spot.
Farmers take pride in being stewards of the land. After all, their livelihoods and the lives of everyone else depends on protecting that land and preserving natural resources.
I think that the thing to keep in mind is that, you know, I'd say all farmers care about their land, they care about their animals, they care about their community. For us, that the most precious thing on the farm, aside from water, is soil. So if the soil leaves our farm, and we're fairly flat here, but if it leaves the farm and washes away, we will never get that back. And thousands and thousands of years, it's gone. Trees everywhere.
For Majewski and the others at this training, Cedar Mountain Farm is proof these practices to protect soil and improve water quality work, no matter what side of the river you're on.
We've got a lot of talent on either side of the river, and anything that we can do to collaborate and work with those farms is going to be a win-win. In a lot of cases, I mean, the farms themselves kind of cross that river, that there are plenty of farms in New Hampshire that are working fields in Vermont, and there are plenty of farms based in Vermont that are farming in New Hampshire. So, you know, the things that we can do to kind of educate farmers together, it just makes sense.
The Connecticut River and the land that surrounds it has been here a long time, and it's in everyone's best interest, farmer and citizen alike, to keep it that way for a longer time to come. In Heartland, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
I'm joined in the studio now by Jen Colby of UVM Extension's Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Megan Sheridan, who is the Executive Director of the Vermont Grass Farmers Association. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Jen, give us an example of how UVM and UNH work together to help farmers on both sides of the river.
Oh, I think Carl gave a great example. We do try to do workshops together. We're currently part of a 6-state Long Island Sound grant to provide technical assistance to farmers, all different kinds of farmers. It's really focused on water quality. So sometimes that's a focus on soil health, and sometimes it's directly on water quality itself, but all different kinds of farms all the way up and down the river. So,
yeah, can you give me some examples of the sorts of projects that we're talking about and what kind of farms we're talking about?
Oh, sure. So we've had the opportunity, the nice thing about this particular grant being a big multi-state grant with a lot of partners is that the emphasis is on partnership building. So we've been working with some very traditional cow dairy farms. We've also been working with some grazing farms, corn operations, but we've been able to expand it into vegetable operations, horse farms, and some pollinator vegetable farm partnerships to increase biodiversity and build soil health at the same time, which is like a great win-win.
Terrific. Well, it's almost time for the annual Vermont Grazing Conference, and Megan, the Vermont Grass Farmers Association plays an important role in this conference. Talk a little bit about how the group addresses issues around how farms are managed.
So a lot of what we do relates to bringing in experts from the region and across the country into the conference. So the conference is a really important part of the education and outreach. But throughout the year, we also do pasture walks with innovative farmers, sharing that information with both the other farmers in the community and the public. And we do farmer-to-farmer connections also.
Why is that important, getting farmers together?
Oh, I think because they share, one, there's a lot of cred, right? They've got a lot of credibility in the game, and then and they share their knowledge. They're on the farm information, and people just the ideas generate, and they take them home and see how they work at their home farm. And I think it's just a very important way to cross-pollinate the information that's on the ground.
And so the Vermont Grazing Conference runs January 18th and 19th at the Lake Morey Resort. Who are a couple of the speakers this year at the conference that people should know about?
Oh, well, we have this dynamite husband-wife duo, so they're each going to do their own keynote, David Montgomery and Ann Bickley, and he is a geologist by training, and she is a biologist by training, and they've co-written a book, and he's written additional books around soil health and the connections to human health. So he's going to tackle a little bit more of the soil health side, and she's going to tackle more of the human health side and how soil impacts human health, because it does.
Yeah. Well, besides protecting natural resources, what are some of the other topics that you have in this year's program?
Oh gosh, so we're doing some terrific direct marketing from the heart with a special speaker from Oregon, Charlotte Smith, and we're also doing some workshops around livestock and liability and how to manage livestock in the context of regulatory and legal issues. And then we have some good old-fashioned, classic grazing basics, production-oriented workshops too.
And
so a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of opportunity for farmer workshops too. So there'll be farmers who will be giving workshops on certain topics. So we'll have people coming in from outside the region, and then we'll also have regional farmers sharing some of their knowledge.
And I think it's interesting having this woman, Charlotte Smith, come in and talk about marketing, because that's just as important, really, as any other topic that a farmer is going to face.
Definitely. I was going to say, because if you don't make money, you can't keep your business going. And so there's the production side is incredibly important, and understanding your markets, whether they're direct markets or regional markets or bigger markets than that piece is really important. If we don't get enough for our products, we can't stay in business, and we want to stay in business.
Is it difficult for farmers to sort of stay on top of all the different marketing platforms there are these days?
Oh yeah, I mean, they have to pick and choose. You know, you got to kind of know what your options are, and then sort of target what you're going to be good at and what your skill set is, and then also understand where you need to improve. But yeah, you can't do it all. So this is a little bit about how to narrow it down and pick your place.
Yeah, I would imagine it'd be a little overwhelming otherwise.
Yeah, it's just not enough time.
So do you think you get more questions about the marketing or the production side of farming?
We were just talking about this. So I think it's a little bit of both. You know, no matter what kind of farmer you are and where you are in your life cycle of farming, you're looking for innovations on both sides all the time. You're always kind of pushing where you can improve in your marketing and where you can improve in your production.
What sort of important topics are coming up for grass-based livestock farms in 2019, would you say?
Oh gosh, so a couple of new, there's the programs that have come about because of interest in themes. Dairy grazing apprenticeship, doing apprenticeships on grazing dairy farms. It's a formal program from nationally that's just come to Vermont in the last few months. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
It handles the transition side, and it handles some of the technical side as well, so it's a really nice opportunity. And another one is looking at the profitability of grass-based beef farms and helping folks build their businesses more proactively with business planning.
Because it's really not something you can do overnight if you're trying to make a transition.
No, not making a transition nor making profit. The viability is in big question, and is something that we're really looking at. And we're going to talk about ranching for profit.
I was going to talk. I was going to say that's our grass-based beef profitability. Is we're actually partnering with a business planning school in Burlington the first week of February. Spots are still open. It's very intense. It's called Ranching for Profit, and it's another sort of national group that we've been able to entice to come here and do its first ever east of the Mississippi school.
Nice.
And it's for all livestock, not just
Yeah.
beef. So
even though it says ranching for profit, and they're out
really
west,
farming.
right? It's farming for profit.
Right.
So
Yes,
it's
yeah.
really appropriate for all kinds of farms.
Well,
Yep,
terrific.
yep.
For more detail on the 2019 Vermont Grazing and Livestock Conference, which is being held on January 18th and 19th at the Lake Morey Resort Inn in Fairleigh, you can check the website on your screen. It's uvm.edu/tilde-pasture, or you can call Jen at 802-656-5459. Thanks so much for being with us today.
cool. Thank you so much.
That's our program for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.